What is engineering? Let's take a moment to think about your morning. The alarm on your phone goes off at 7:03. You drag yourself to the shower and blast yourself with perfectly warm water in an attempt to wake up. You smear your toothbrush with too much toothpaste and scrub yourself into a foamy mess of minty freshness. You're running late, so you skate downtown, weaving through the commuters, dart across the road, barely making the lights, and jump on the train just before the doors beep shut. There's a couple of stops to go, so you pull out your phone and play a few games of Angry Birds. Alarms, trains, traffic lights, video games, toothpaste, all these things were made possible by engineers. But what prompts an engineer to improve our world? Well, they solve problems. Problems are an engineer's inspiration, and maths and science are the creative tools they use to solve them. Problems like making your alarm go off at the right time, or making sure your toothpaste has just the right balance of chemicals to give you that perfect smile, or even making a game so addictive it's almost impossible to put down, if that really is a problem. Now let's head over to the airport and jump on an aeroplane. Aeroplanes. They're so easy to take for granted. But don't forget, you can fly! Before aeroplanes, flying was quite a bit more challenging. Every bit of your plane has been touched by engineers. A mechanical engineer designed the engine. A mechatronics engineer devised the controls. The fuel? Extracted by mining engineers and refined by chemical engineers. The navigation systems? Electrical and software engineers created those. Yep, a whole team of engineers. Now we've landed in Dubai, home of the Burj Khalifa. It's the world's tallest building at 829.8 metres high. It's also in one of the world's hottest environments, reaching up to 50 degrees in summer. One of the difficulties of building the Burj was trying to figure out how to set 45,000 cubic metres of reinforced concrete in such extreme weather. The solution? A clever method of pumping iced liquid concrete into the 55,000-ton steel frame during the night. The result? A building that's vertically over 800 metres high, rather than horizontally all over the ground. Now let's jump into our time machine and go back to Saturday. Saturday, March 1932. the Sydney Harbour Bridge is about to open. The bridge is a marvel of civil engineering, and a pretty cool place to set off some fireworks. Since 1815, people had been talking about building a bridge to connect the two sides of the harbour. The problem was that the harbour was so incredibly wide. How could a bridge span such a width and support its own weight? The solution? The Romans! Well, actually it was an idea they came up with. The arched bridge works by transferring the weight into horizontal forces and bracing them at the ends of the arch. But what about the future? What problems will engineers solve next? Will we finally have affordable solar power? Or robots that can perform life-saving surgery? Or a building that's so tall your view is of outer space? Or how about finally engineering a working hoverboard? Seriously, we've waited long enough. So what is engineering? It's solving problems. It's taking crazy, out there ideas and seeing if they're actually possible. And when they are, the idea is shared with the world to make all our lives better.
Ah, early man, our prehistoric relatives and forefathers. Quick to run, less quick to communicate. In fact, it took several million years before we realized it might be better to organize communication into a system. In some of its earliest forms, humans communicated through pictograms, like the stories on the walls of the pyramids. But pictograms were limited, so the ancient Greeks invented the first extensive alphabet. Over the next several hundreds of years, communication was limited to handwritten materials, which were largely religious in subject. That changed in 1448 when a German named Johann Gutenberg invented the printing press. His invention combined ink, paper, and movable type with the goal of creating standardized reproducible writing. Apropos for the times, Johann printed a ton of Bibles. Spin the wheel of history to the 1700s and meet the Gutenberg press's faster, more dashing brother, the typewriter. Historians count 50 or more prototypes that existed before William Austin Burt patented an early version in 1829. Also in the 1800s, an American named Samuel Morse transitioned from painter to inventor when his wife died, but he didn't hear of her death until days later. Now, keenly aware that the speed of communication wasn't up to snuff, Morse created the telegraph and Morse code. In the 1870s, two inventors, Alexander Graham Bell and Elisha Gray, battled to create and subsequently fight over the invention of the telephone. Bell was proclaimed the winner, despite Gray likely beating Bell to the patent office. Less than 50 years later, another feud erupted, this time between Nikola Tesla and Guglielmo Marconi over the invention of radio. It was also a race to the patent office that ended in Marconi being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize and Tesla being awarded an eponymous 80s band. Now that sound could be transmitted wirelessly, we did the same with visual images. The 1950s marked the television boom, leading to a black and white TV signal broadcast into living rooms everywhere. Not to be left out, telephones took a page from the ancient Greek scroll and made considerable strides in speed and efficiency, with the development of fiber optic cable by Corning in the 1960s and the birth of a rather full-figured cell phone in the 1980s. Thousands of vacuum tubes later, communication focused on the computer and microprocessors that used Dow Corning silicon in computer chips. And by the early 1980s, personal computers were sold to the public. But of course, where would modern communication be if we neglected to mention the Internet? The Internet was first used by the US government until the 1990s, when Internet browsing went commercial, marking the tipping point for email and in-the-shower-away messages. But never one to be tethered to the past or to a desk, we took web browsing from desktops to mobile devices and tablets with the advent of 3G and 4G technology, allowing us to communicate at light speed from anywhere on the globe and forever altering how we perceive our role in the world. Are you ready for the next innovation?
Rome's engineers had a secret weapon that enabled them to build bigger, stronger, and faster than anyone else. Waterproof concrete, mixed with a volcanic sand called pozzolana.
They realized pretty early on that by using this substance that they could build literally underwater an extraordinary invention, which would allow them then to create enormous piers literally within the water itself, revolutionizing travel. That is, bridges could be built that would be permanent bridges rather than wooden bridges.
Does your manufacturing process need a customizable testing system? Turn to the leader in measurement and automation technology.